A lot of times we downplay a lot of our strengths. It's like this false humility. We don't want to come off like we think we're out, that kind of thing. And so we can kind of dim the light for a lot of different reasons. And I think coaching kind of helps you really own some of your greatness.
And stand taller. And especially as women, I think we speak to ourselves in a way that often makes ourselves smaller, and we don't even know we do it until someone else points it out with kindness and with a purpose.
Yeah, we don't want to intimidate other people. We don't want people to be competitive. Like there's so many different reasons as women, I think we do that light dimming thing. We don't make other people feel bad about themselves, whatever. There's a lot.
Welcome to the House of JerMar podcast, where wellness starts within. The House of JerMar is a lifestyle brand, empowering women to live all in through interior design and personal wellness. We are a destination for women ready to reimagine what is possible in their homes and lives, and then create it. We are honored to have you join us on our mission to empower 1 million women to live all in. I am your host, Jean Collins, and I invite you to become inspired by this week's guest. Welcome to the House of JerMar podcast, where wellness starts within. I'm your host, Jean Collins, and this week we are talking about coaching. Everybody, please welcome to the show, Talie Davis-Weir. She is a lifestyle coach. She coaches people individually. But the other thing that I think is really fascinating about what she does is she helps coach coaches. I did not even know such a thing existed. So I am so excited to share her with you, her journey with you. She's really inspiring. She has amazing energy. She's such a positive force. And I thank you so much, Talie, for joining the show. Welcome to the House of JerMar podcast.
Thank you. So good to be here. Thanks for having me, Jean.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for making the time. And we spoke once before, and it was so fun to talk to you because I had no idea that people did what you do, first of all, which I think the world of coaching is a hot button right now. I am a huge fan of coaching. I have always had coaches. I think coaches should have coaches. Every coach I know has a coach. And so I'm a huge proponent of coaching and love spreading the word with people about the value of a coach and how many different kinds of coaches are out there. And so when I met you, I was like, oh my goodness, not only are you a coach, which is amazing, but you also help coaches become coaches and become better coaches, which I think is really exciting.
Certified and trained. And it's like, how do you learn how to coach? It's
Right.
like anything. You don't know how to do it until you learn how to do it. And so it feels like, for me, such a beautiful way to have more impact in the world, not only coaching people, but pouring into and training and getting certified coaches who really want to make a difference in the world. So I love it. I love it so much.
Which is so great. And we're going to share about that because I have to say, people have asked me on many occasions, do you think you'll become a coach? And I never say no. I don't always say, oh, yes, I'm dying to become a coach. But I think for a lot of us, depending on what we do for a living, there is a natural progression into that because, just like you said, the desire to want to help more people.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, having a resource like you out there is great.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
All right. So before we get super deep in the weeds on coaching and what you do and how you become a coach and what is even, the certification and all the levels and what is that and how do you make sure you get a good certification? There's so many questions I have. I love to share my podcast guest's story about how they got to where they are now because nothing is linear. We don't wake up one day saying, oh, yay, I want to be a podcast host or, oh, yay, I want to be a life coach.
Yes.
It just doesn't work that way. So I would love it if you would take some time to share your journey and how did you get to where you are today?
Sure. Yeah. So I think I started having some inklings of, oh, this has pieces of what I want to do. Back when I was in high school, I was in a pretty large youth group. There were several hundred kids, and our youth pastor and staff, they were just amazing at helping us get really tuned into what we were great at and then find opportunities to use it and try things on and grow and just discover a lot about ourselves. And so it was a beautiful environment to be in. And then within that, I kind of got to try on a lot of different things. And one of the things I noticed that I loved was really connecting people and really encouraging them in who they most were. So I've come later to find out, like, do strength finders or different assessments. And you're like, oh, okay, that is a part of me. So developer is one of my strengths. And so I love finding greatness in people, seeing the diamond in them that they don't necessarily even fully see in themselves. And then I think when you treat people according to who they most truly are, like that, it just kind of comes out of them and shines. And I love putting people in those environments. I love seeing the greatness. I love speaking to it. I love helping them see it. And so I just had a lot of opportunities in that environment. I remember sophomore year being like, oh my gosh, I don't know exactly what this is, but I need to find out how I can do this for the rest of my life. I need to find out what job gets to do this because I just loved it. And just, yeah, so much energy from it. And so I was kind of like, I don't know. I don't know what role it is. And a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, you should be a counselor. Like I tell you things I don't tell anybody. And I heard that a lot. I'm like, it's like kind of close. There's something about working with people like that one on one, but I think there was some aspect of it that I wasn't totally on board for, kind of going into the past and just kind of working through all the painful. It was kind of like there was something in me that was more geared for present moving forward, and I could feel that, but I didn't know what coaching was at that point. So I kind of ended up doing a lot of leadership development kinds of pieces for like probably 20 years and loved that. And then when I discovered coaching, I was like, oh, that's even more of kind of there's something in there that really resonated. So yeah, I would say
which is
kind of the journey, but
yeah, right. Well, now, and when you did leadership, were you working for another company or were you always an entrepreneur working for yourself?
yeah, well, it's interesting because it really was more in kind of ministry circles. So I worked with a lot of leadership teams within ministry circles and ran retreats and did all kinds of things. Worked with senior leader teams and kind of helped teams really work well together, and then developing leaders. So yeah,
That's also very interesting and powerful.
it was beautiful. I really, really loved it. And I think coaching is just slightly even more like such a fit. So that was getting
Right.
close, but this is even
Right.
closer. Yeah.
So when you decided you wanted to move into coaching, what was the first step that you took? How did you know?
Um,
How do you move forward? I'm
yeah.
speaking to the people that are listening out there that are kind of like, I might be interested. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well, for me, I was like, okay, I've worked with people for a long time. I know that there's a lot about this that is a fit. But for me at the time, like the way that it opened up was really interesting. So I was in probably my hardest season of life in that moment. I was going through a divorce. I had one of my really close friends who had seen me for a long time in all the different aspects of what I did, and she was in a lot of the things that I trained. And she was like, Talie, I'm telling you, you should do coaching. She's like, because she was sitting on the board of a master life coach out in California, and she was co-authoring books with him. So she was really in those circles, and she's just like, I am telling you, of everything that you do, this is like even more a fit. And I had a coach at that point. So there was something in me that was like, oh, there's something really attuned. But because of the life stage I was in, I was like, girl, I am not going to be coaching anyone else's life. Like I'm right now, like I'm no, I am not going to be, stepping into coaching in this moment. I don't think so.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
She just kind of kept leaning. She's like, that's what qualifies you for it. Like going through things, and you're going through it so beautifully and with so much forgiveness and so, your heart. And I was just like, no, 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 I'm not going to be coaching. So I just kept resisting, and she kept leaning in and like, I'm telling you. And I just couldn't see it. But there
Yeah.
was this like series of, how the universe, God, works, where things get put in your path, and it's just like synchronistic event after is like that. So I could go into the whole story. It's a really beautiful story, but I don't know how much time we have. So it was one of those that it was so clear, so clear that like it's just being handed to me, like
Yeah. Yeah. Right
it's
there.
one of those where you walk up to like the grocery store door, and it just has that electric open door, and you're
Yeah.
like,
I
how can
guess I
I
walk in.
do
I
this?
guess I enter. Right.
Yeah. So it was one of those kind of situations like, okay. And so it was a certification program actually. So that's kind of
Yeah.
how it kicked off, and probably why I'm passionate about it, because that is really what launched me into what I'm doing today. Getting to coach and getting to make a difference for leaders. So I continued to work with leaders, and I still do. I still do one-on-one coaching with leaders, and absolutely love it. I don't see myself ever not doing that. Like, I don't
Yeah.
see myself ever retiring. I just love it so much. I'm like, retirement? Why would I want to
What
retire?
is that? Oh, but see, that like tells you when you found your mission and your passion that it's no longer work.
Right.
And that's what everyone says. When you've really found your calling and what you're truly supposed to do, it's so heartfelt and is so meaningful
Yes.
that it's not work and
So
that you would keep doing it
And that's why I
because
love
it
coaching.
fuels you.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
I help people find that for them because
Yeah.
everyone has that. Everyone has
Yeah.
that place where like it gives you more energy after you do something than before you started it. Like I feel like that after every coaching call. I'm more alive, more energized, just like, oh my gosh, how is this my job? I love it. That's what I want to help people get to is what is it that lights you up, that makes you come alive when you do it, that you feel purposeful and like you're making a significant difference for other people and in the world and you're in contribution. Yeah. So that's what I love.
Which is powerful. All
Yeah.
right. So this is a really big question, but an
Yes.
open-ended one that I think is a good one for people who have never gone to a coach before. If someone comes to you and you say, that's my mission, is to help people find the thing that lights them up. If I was someone who had never been to coach before, but I'm not, my audience might say, okay, how in the world are you going to do that for me?
Yeah. It's amazing. That's what the beauty of coaching is it's asking a lot of really just curious questions and then finding a thread and just kind of staying with that to evoke awareness in you. So there's no point where I'm like, oh, I know what you're supposed to do. It's always asking questions that kind of creates that, oh, in the other person. And so they get there, but it's just
Yeah.
asking powerful, open-ended, curious questions that kind of and then also following my intuition. It's like if I was coaching with you right now, I would see like what is it that, I see that energy in you or maybe it's a tone of voice or a sparkle in your eye. Like when you talk about
Right.
this happens in you. And when you talk about this, like, even your body language does this. And then you're like, haven't even noticed that.
Right.
You're kind of following all the different cues, which is all what you learn when you go through some kind of training. So yeah, that's
Sure.
kind of where I started was getting trained and getting to learn a lot of this stuff. But yeah, helping people notice in themselves what it is that causes them to come alive. And there's so many different ways to look at clues from your life or your past or, when was the last time you felt that and kind of going back
Right.
to
Yes. But I always love to say I love how coaching is when you say, like, when was the last time you felt like that?
yes,
However, the focus is not about, like, let's go back to your inner child and
mhm,
fix everything with how
right,
you were raised, folks, right? Like, that everybody is therapy. Like, the
right,
thing that I love so much about coaching, it's like tap into moments in the past where you felt a
mm,
certain way and how do we get that feeling
yes,
back again and that spark and some
yeah,
of the emotions that we equate to being young and
mhm,
carefree
right,
and passionate that I think as life starts to wear on us, that light gets dimmed a little bit because the reality and responsibility of life. And to your point, the stage you were in life of, getting a divorce and having like life is hard. And sometimes it's hard when you're in that space to find light.
mhm,
So looking backwards for the light helps you get in tune with the feeling.
100%. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
And then you very
That's
much, I found my experience with coaches, it's sort of, I love how you say it helps you look within because I feel like in some ways it's just the mirror. We don't like to look in the mirror at ourselves, but it is the mirror without you having to feel uncomfortable by looking right at yourself and having a conversation with yourself. You get to have it with somebody else, but
yes,
you are the mirror reflecting the things
absolutely,
that
absolutely.
we need to see.
Mhm.
It's so powerful.
A lot of times we downplay a lot of our strengths. It's like this false humility. We don't wanna come off like we think we're all that kinda thing. And so we can kinda dim the light for a
Yeah.
lot of different reasons. And I
Yeah.
think coaching kinda helps you really own some of your greatness.
And stand taller. And especially as women, I think we
Yeah.
we we speak to ourselves in a way that always often makes ourselves smaller and we don't even know we do it until someone else points it out with kindness and with a purpose.
Yeah, we don't wanna intimidate other people, we don't want people to be competitive, like, there's so many different reasons as women, I think we do that light dimming thing. Don't make
Right.
other people feel bad about themselves, whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Yeah.
But I also love that you talked about the fact that you were so resistant to coaching because you felt like, why would anyone hire me? And I have had people say this before.
Yes.
And I've learned over the last 4 years in particular that there's so much value in our life experiences, and we don't give enough value to the life experience. We just focus on the what's your degree, what's your education, where have you worked, what's your resume, but there's so much value in life experience. So I love that you mentioned that you felt that way.
Yeah. I think it's one of the best things that we bring into what we offer other people, like
Yeah.
pain that we've walked through, challenges that we've overcome. All of that is like, my friend was so right. I just couldn't see it at the time. She's like, that is what qualifies you to be able to come alongside people. And I'm like, no, no. Like maybe once I come through it, and she's like,
Yeah.
I am telling you, so,
Yeah.
and I think some of it is I had an impression a little bit that coaching was, I'm showing up as the expert in somebody else's life to help them. And really, coaching is truly a partnership where you come alongside the other person, and you're just, it's almost like the client is the driver in the car, and I'm kind of like the co-pilot or the passenger,
It's
but
a good
helping
analogy.
them get really clear. Yes.
Yeah.
Not
That's a
like
good
this,
analogy.
go. That's really more consulting. And sometimes it's easy to get those things confused, but that was just
Yeah.
me not really understanding in many
Of
ways.
course. Of course. So when you went and did a coaching class and a coaching certification, I will say, at least right now, there are so many
Yes.
options.
Yes, there's a lot out there.
So many. So, how do you decide if you want to be a coach? Where do you go? And what prerequisites should a coach have if you're looking to hire someone?
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, first question, how do you decide where you want to get certified? So, really, probably looking at what certifying body do you want to be under? So, for me, like, I love ICF. I don't know, to me, that's like the gold standard in coaching. If you're
Yeah.
because when I first got certified, it wasn't through ICF. So the program that kind of showed up in front of me that I was like, okay, obvious emphasis, I was like, do you get an ICF certification from it? They're like, well, we're based on ICF competencies, but it's not technically an ICF certification. I was like, I didn't really know what I didn't know at the time. And it was a beautiful start. I learned a lot. I grew. But then there were a lot of different potential contracts that, they were like, oh, we've interviewed all these people. We want to go with you. We're going to get the contract over to you. Just send us your ICF certification. And I'm like, so it's not technically an ICF, and then I get the
Uh-huh.
contracts multiple times and I'm like, okay, clearly I need to get an ICF certification. So for me, that was learning the hard way in my personal experience. So deciding what certifying body you'd like to be under, there are different ones out there. And then after you decide that, kind of going in and looking at different ones, I will say there are a lot of organizations that are like, you can get all this training and it's under ICF in a weekend, or, and it's, some low amount of money. And then you get in there and you like really read the fine print, because there are organizations that will say it's an ICF training, but it doesn't equate to an ICF certification or
Right.
any
Yeah.
other, certifying body. So really look
Sure.
at and ask the questions. Do you actually get a certification? At what level? And then for me, I led quite a few trainings at the ACC level. So within ICF, there's ACC, Associate Certified Coach, PCC, Professional Certified Coach, and MCC, Master Certified Coach. And one is like the ACC is kind of like getting your bachelor's degree in a way in the coaching world. PCC
Okay.
is a lot like getting your master's degree, and MCC is a lot like getting your PhD. So I
Okay.
led quite a few. I created an ACC training. It's a 60-hour training, and started taking people through that. And it was beautiful. It was a great experience for me and for my students. And then I had a group that was like, we kind of really want to get our PCC. Could you take us all the way through PCC? And I'm like, let me see. So I talked to ICF and they're like, here's what you need to do to get that credential or that accredited. So I went through that process and took all of them through the PCC level. And then I was just blown away, because that's 125-hour training.
It's a lot.
The difference,
It's a commitment. It's a commitment.
it's a commitment, but it's like what they came out of that with, because it's, it's based on 8 competencies, and you learn those. You can get all of those learned and understand them in a 60-hour training and really kind of start getting some momentum. But I watched the people that went through the 125-hour training, the PCC level, and they're like confident and they are getting like results consistently and their businesses started blowing up. I was like, whoa, okay, there is something really in that, making the time to integrate all the learning, because there's a lot
Right.
to learn up here, but
Yeah.
kind of get it into where it just flows naturally and you're confident and you're like, put anybody across from me and I'm going to get them results,
Right. Right.
I
Right.
think
Apply it.
yeah, it just takes longer to integrate. I kind of use the analogy like I like ballroom dancing. So, you can watch Dancing with the Stars or those different people are out there on the floor and you can tell they are in it and they're just feeling it. They're not in their head. They're in their
Yes.
full self. It's embodied.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and I think about coaching and a lot of those programs, it's like you want to be that coach that's just, out there embodying it, flowing and confident and knowing that you know what you're doing. And a lot of times when you do those really short trainings, it's kind of like you're in your head, because when you go to actually do a ballroom dance lesson for the first time, you want to get out there and just like flow and dance, and they're going, okay, right foot back, over, you're like you have to you actually have to learn it up here and then
Yeah.
just do it and do it and do it before you can kind of close your eyes and just dance it and
And
not
just
think
flow.
about it, right? So
Feel it.
like that, I think with anything, but certainly for coaching. And so I've just watched the difference between like really putting yourself on a track and doing a 125-hour training. That's when I've noticed that people really get the results I think people, like most coaches, really want to have.
Yeah.
So I think it depends too. What are you in it for? Do you
Right.
just need the credential after your name? If so, you can do it cheaper, quicker. Just
Yep.
say I'm certified through whatever. Or do you really want to have that experience where you're like, I know that I know what I'm doing and I feel great about charging what I charge and I know I'm going
Yeah.
to get results and
Yeah.
referrals and, repeat clients, all of that. So yeah, to
If
me, like I'm somebody who loves to invest in myself and just always be in the learning. I feel like
yes.
there's not a destination. It is always journey. And so I'm always in a track learning something new. That's just kind of how I roll. But yeah.
Which
So that,
I'm a huge fan of. I feel like continual learning is so
yes,
important because it's also continual growing. And
absolutely.
if you stop learning, you stop growing. And that's so boring. So
Exactly.
continual
Yeah,
learning is so important. And I would think if I were looking to go hire a coach, I would want a coach who wants to continually learn. Like, I
absolutely.
don't think anyone should ever feel like they've reached it. They're here. This is the end game. There's nothing else for me to learn. There's no other experience for me to have. There's no way for me to get any better. Like,
Yeah. And
that's
so
not
that was your
true.
other
So,
question about, how do you know
yes.
who is a good coach? I mean, coaching, I've heard, I don't know if it's ready to kind of fact check this, but I've heard it's the second fastest growing industry right now. Like,
I would not surprise me.
that's
I
like
feel like that
billion
is,
dollar industry or something.
yeah, I
It's
think that is probably true.
And it's
Yes.
like understandable because, it's a deeply fulfilling job. You have, so much flexibility. Like
Yeah.
I can work from anywhere. I'm just like,
Yes.
the
Which
kids
is
want to go somewhere. I'm like, yep, because I can coach from the beach or in a hammock at a park or anywhere. I can coach from anywhere. And then you get to set it around your schedule. So you get to say how many clients you want to have a week, who you want to work with. There's just an incredible amount of flexibility. So it's understandable why it's a very fast growing industry. And then more and more people know it, get it, want it. It's like if you want to move further, faster in any area of your life, there is a coach for you for that,
right.
which is
Yeah.
amazing. But I think when you're hiring, so I would say get on a call. A lot of coaches will do some kind of intro, some kind of complimentary, sometimes a discovery call or something because they want to like feel you out. Do they want to work with you? And you get a chance to feel them out and like just feel if there's a connection,
Yeah.
maybe have a few of those calls with a few different coaches and just see like who do I really feel connected with? Who do I feel seen by? Who do I feel like is really going to empower me to go where I want to go? And talk about
Yeah.
what you want to get out of it and ask them like how do you see us being able to get there? How do you work with people? different coaches work with people different ways. Like I work with people weekly. I do an hour session every week with my clients, but different coaches do have different packages. So just see, like,
Right.
is there a connection? Do you feel like there's somebody you're finding yourself leaning into, emotionally
Mm,
feeling safe with, feeling seen by? And
yeah.
yeah, just let them share maybe some stories of impact they've had with other clients that they've,
Oh,
worked
that's a good
with.
story. That's a good one.
Have you
Yeah.
had any clients like me, and can you tell me any stories about results
Right.
with them?
Yeah. That
Yeah.
is
So
that's a good one.
I think the biggest thing though is like I think when you connect with people. Is there a connection there? Do you feel
Right.
safe? Do you feel seen? Yeah, those are
Yeah.
the biggest things.
And safe. You mentioned the word safe because I think feeling safe with a coach is important because you want someone who will ask you challenging questions, but not make you terrified to be vulnerable and reveal the
Yeah.
answers.
Yeah.
And
Just absolutely.
like if a coach is not going to push you, in my opinion, then they're not necessarily doing their job. You want them to ask some questions that you might not ask yourself or
Yeah.
might not force yourself to really think about the
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
And you want to feel safe enough to be honest about that
Yeah.
answer. Otherwise, garbage in, garbage out.
Totally. And there are different coaches that kind of come from different. I like some coaches just I think especially maybe coaches that haven't been trained as much in a particular model, but they see themselves more as like I'm your accountability person. So I'm just going to be drilling in like, did you do the thing? Did you do the
Yeah.
thing? You know,
Yeah.
and
Uh
like
huh.
maybe that's what you want. Maybe that's what you think will help you. But a lot of coaches are more like, okay, what's coming up? What is it that you really want? And when you say like, I need to do da da da, they'll really lean in with you. Like, is this a should that's like some kind of external, like I just should do this, or is this internally motivated something that you really want, and why is that important to you? And really help you get under what it is that you're really going after and why, and what is going to help you get there. So yeah, I think that's
Good
worth
advice.
checking into as well.
Yes. Good advice. And a coach should have a coach.
Always. It's like if you are a coach, then you value coaching, right? You value
Right.
your own growth and learning. So
Right, exactly. And if you don't have a coach, then there's a problem with that.
like, do you really believe in this thing that you do?
Right, right. How into what you really do? How much do you believe in what you do if you don't have
Right.
one too?
Right.
Uh-huh.
What's interesting too is that coaches that have a coach and invest in themselves, it's so much easier to just like you just have this, of course people want
Yeah.
to do this. And of course people are gonna pay you to do this because you get it. Like you're in it. And you're
Yeah,
almost in the energy of it and it attracts it. So yeah.
right. It's a way of living.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
let's go back to continual learning. So I feel like there is so much that we all can learn about ourselves and personal wellness and health and mental challenges and mental growth. How do you decide what you're going to learn
Yeah.
next?
That's such a good question. To me, I think it's mostly kind of it feels kind of like a spiritual experience to me. It just either a theme will show up or a lot of it are these kind of what feel to me kind of like synchronous things that are like, oh, that's so interesting. I just had a conversation about this. And then here's that, I just had this aha in my own coaching session. And then I sit next to somebody on a plane who's reading this book or who's, whatever. It's just
Yep.
so funny how it just shows up like that.
Yeah.
Like I do a lot of things. Like I have a masterclass membership and a Mind Valley membership. There's just different things that there are a lot of when I finish one quest or one course and I'm kind of like, okay, what else is catching my attention? Or
Right.
I mean, I surround myself with a lot of people who are personal development and growth kind of people. That's one of the beautiful things about being a coach too, is that you have all these people who are doing that kind of work and who love to learn and grow. So a lot of times, a friend will be like, hey, let's do this book club, or hey, do you want to do this whatever challenge with me? So I don't know. I feel like I always have at least one thing going, sometimes three or four. I love it.
Because
I
you're
love
putting
it.
yourself in the right
Oh,
place, the right
yeah.
time, and you're opening yourself up.
Yeah.
and you're aware. You made a comment about it's so much of what you're talking about is awareness of the things that come out and that are maybe speaking to you before the universe has to smack you across the head with whatever it is you're supposed to be learning at a given point in time. And so you can make your journey so much easier if you learn to become aware of these signs and just kind of subtly. I always tell people, like, if something makes you pause, it's making you pause for a reason.
Yeah.
And you don't have to necessarily act on it quite yet. But if that's something you're supposed to be doing, then that will come back again, to your point, in some other sign, in some other way. And then, like, pay attention, because if you pause twice, that means you're supposed to do something
Yeah,
about that.
there's something there, right?
Yeah, there is. There's
And I
something
think
there
it
talking to you.
causes you to kind of have eyes that are open for that. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm a journaler. I like to journal every morning. And so a lot of times I'll see things in my, like, that I've written about that day kind of show up out in life and, like, oh, look at that. But I think it's because we train our brain, like that reticular activating system. It's that
Yeah.
part of your brain that kind of tunes out the extra and tunes in the things. It's like when you're shopping for a particular car that you don't normally, and like all of a sudden they're everywhere, or you're looking
Yes.
for a certain, I don't know,
Right.
outfit or whatever, you just start noticing it all over the place. So that's your reticular activating system, your brain telling you, oh, this is the thing I think you believe is important, so I'm going to highlight it.
It's
Or
going to
like
be everywhere.
that noise in your environment that isn't important for you to be tuned into, that you learn to just kind of, that's why moms, like you're around mom of a toddler and you're like, oh my gosh, how do you get anything done? Like her brain tunes that. That's not, and
Right.
that's not
That's
a,
not an I'm in trouble voice or sound. That's
right.
just my toddler being a toddler.
Yes, exactly.
But
So
that's
it's like
not a
that's
tragic, I've fallen and I need help.
yes, yes. But
Yes.
I think we do that in our, when we're people who are self-reflective, there is something that your brain kind of dials in, like, oh, this is important. And then you start seeing it show up out in the world.
Yeah.
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 Cool.
Well, the thing about the cars, I've read so many
Yeah.
stories about people saying, oh, I want to manifest a certain car. And then all of a sudden they see them everywhere.
Yes. Yeah.
And I had a guest on the other day. She was like, I wanted to be pregnant. I was going through IVF. And all of a sudden I realized, like, I feel like the whole world is pregnant.
It's totally different.
She's like, because I was never noticing the pregnant people. But now that I'm trying to become pregnant, I feel like everyone around me is pregnant.
Totally.
And I'm like, I'm sure that the people around you didn't really change. It's just
Yes.
how, your brain is
Absolutely.
noticing and
So what
picking up on
you
those
do.
things.
And I think that's
Yeah.
why visualization is so powerful, like really focusing on the things that you want. I do a vision clarity retreat every January, and
Yeah.
it's so cool. Like we do all of these steps and kind of help dial in, like, what is it that you want in every important area of your life, and then we end up creating a vision board. And it's so wild. People that come back year after year, they're like, oh my gosh, like I did everything on my vision board by October because I was so dialed in and looking
Dialed
at it
in.
every day. And I think when we do that, we really do, we draw that toward us. We have the eyes to see it. Like if you know that you're going to run a marathon by the end of the year, it's like you just start hearing conversations that you normally would not notice, or seeing a poster for something in your area that you wouldn't pay attention to, or noticing a group doing something at your gym that normally you'd walk right past. But because it's something you're dialing into, you just start seeing it everywhere. Like, oh, this could help me with that thing I'm looking at every day. Oh, this
Right.
could serve, it's cool. It's
Yeah.
powerful.
It's so cool. So let's talk about vision boards for 1 second.
Sure, sure.
Okay. So I have read so many books. I have listened to so many podcasts. I have been to mindset meetings, and everyone's like, you have to do a vision board. And I must have trauma from my childhood somewhere where I'm like, oh my God,
Words at some
the
point.
thought of going through magazines and cutting out pictures and gluing them onto a board makes me nauseous.
Well, what
Like,
if you
that's
don't
like,
have to do it that way?
well, so here's my question for you. Because I think what it is I always viewed myself as not being a creative person.
Uh-huh.
And ironically, I'm an interior designer and a writer and all these things that are actually very creative. So that perception of myself was not true. Just because I can't draw, it doesn't mean I'm not creative. So about a month ago, I was listening to another podcast and someone was talking about the importance of vision boards. So I was like, okay, universe, you are talking to me. I hear you. So I went and I did 4 Canva digital
Oh, yes.
vision boards.
Yes. Perfect.
So what I was looking for was like, okay, that's okay. So that
Oh,
was
that's
good.
actually
Thank you.
what we do at mine.
It is what you do. Okay.
You kind of have both. You can do the magazine or you can do, and like over the years, I'm like, it's just so much easier. And more people want to have it digitally. They can make it a
Yeah.
screensaver. They can print it off at Staples, whatever. It's like, it's just easier. The whole thing is quicker. You
Yeah.
really can dial into exactly what you want rather than just try. I mean, I think there is something to going through magazines and just seeing what draws you and doing
Yeah.
collages. I just did one this last month actually that way, and it was great. But for vision boards, I think that's how we do ours, is a Canva one, and it's beautiful. It's easy.
I am so glad to hear that. I'm working on a blog
Yay! You're
post about
lunching.
it because I have to say the other interesting part of the exercise was it was really a lot of fun. Like
Yes.
it was so fun. I was so into it all weekend and I
Awesome.
was so committed to wanting to get it done because it's really fun. Because in some ways I'm like, this is like writing a Christmas list when you're a kid. I'm like,
Totally.
this
What do I want?
is right. What do I want? What do I want to create? As if the sky's the limit. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And why not just go find images of it and put it down there and put them all together in a cool little digital collage and add words of inspiration. I got way into it. I did 4 of them. I thought it was so much fun.
Great, you did 4. That is awesome.
I did 4. I started with 1 and then I was like, oh, that's not enough. I need one that focuses on this area and one that focuses on that area. And so I actually did 4 of them. I printed them out. I even put them on a whiteboard that I write on.
I
made
love
them
it. That's
digitally
beautiful.
so I can see them on my phone. I've been converted.
Don't you love looking at them now? Like,
I do. Yeah.
Like, so many things that are
So many
in
things.
you that kind of get you to come alive. Image is so powerful. I really think and I'll tell you this story. Be really clear about what you put down, because like an example, we were doing vision boards at one of these retreats, and this woman wanted to embody like abundance in money, and that she found a cool photograph and it was a jar of coins. And I was like, do you want a jar of coins or do you want a lot of money? She's like, that's a good point. Because I've heard about people, like they put something on their vision board and there's something in the background of something else they were putting in there. And it was like this kind of like car or whatever. And they were highlighting, I don't remember what the thing was that was in front of it, but they ended up getting that car that they're like,
thing in the back.
they're like, oh my gosh, it's been on my vision board for a year. I ended up with the car. I wasn't even intending to. So like, really like what you want. So I was doing a vision board years ago, and so I kind of do mine with the different areas, like the eight different key areas. It's a life wheel assessment that I've created. So we kind of do the vision board around that because it's part of what we do. And in the area that was career and calling, I was like, no, I want to host more retreats. So I had something that said retreats or something like that. And then in my like kind of fun recreation, refresh, refuel category, I had a picture of this beautiful European city. And I was thinking like, I want to travel more. And for whatever reason, this is like maybe 6 or 7 months after having this board. I had it on my iPad as my screensaver. I saw it all the time. I would, pause and just look at it before I'd get into my iPad a lot. And this one day I was like, I don't know why, but it was like these arrows going back and forth between retreats and this beautiful European photo. And I was like, yeah, why don't I have a retreat somewhere in Europe? Why don't I do an Italy retreat? Because I want to go there. So I know there are other people who would.
Too.
It's totally overwhelming to put it all together and figure out the details.
Yes.
And I was like, if I put something together and it just, there's a chef and yoga teacher and massage, all the things that you want to do when you're on vacation.
Sounds heavenly.
So I was like, okay, I'm gonna combine these 2 areas on my vision board and create a retreat. So fast forward 2 weeks before, I was like, yes, we're doing this. And it all was coming together, first international retreat. And 2 weeks before we were getting ready to leave, I was on Pinterest looking up something, and that exact image that I had on my vision board was there. And I was like, oh my gosh, and I clicked on it, and it's the exact location of where we were going.
No.
City we were going to. I was like, what? That's crazy.
Crazy.
Wild. And I didn't even know that it was in Florence. And we had a whole day in Florence, and like our villa was just outside of Florence. It's so cool.
That
Yeah.
is so cool.
Yeah.
See,
But
and that's not the first time I've heard a really cool story like that. That's why I was like, okay, I need to embrace this vision board concept and
yeah,
get
yeah,
with it and do it.
absolutely. And visualization too. Like I've got clients that will, like part of our session, sometimes they'll visualize the thing that they want. And then they'll be like, you have got to be kidding me. Like a month later, something, they're like, do you remember that thing where I was talking through and this detail and that detail? That all just happened this weekend, like to the T. It's great. Like it's wild. It's
It's
powerful.
wild.
It
It
is
is
powerful what
powerful.
we give our attention to and what we focus on and what we are
Yeah.
like, declaring is going to
Yeah.
happen. So yeah.
Well, and it's that saying like it already is.
Yes.
So everything already is, and everything that you want already is. It's just a matter of attracting it and creating it and being in the right space to have it at that time, but it already all is.
Yep. It already exists. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we experience time as this linear thing, right? But I
Yeah.
think bigger than that, like when I think about how God experiences time, it's like completely outside of our little concept of how time works. It's like
Right.
actually already happened
Yeah.
in that space. Like whatever it is has already happened. And so I sometimes wonder if our desire for things even are like we desire it because it's already,
Because it's already happened.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yes, it's already part of the future plan, and that's why we desire it,
yeah,
right?
I don't know.
Versus the flip. It's an interesting thing to think about. Is it's like, oh wow, okay, I got divorced. Is that because I desired it, or that was already part of the plan?
Right.
Or I
I
got
know.
fired because I desired that, or that was
Right.
already the plan, so therefore I
Absolutely.
desired it. It's kind of hard to know.
I think when we live in that trust that it all works out, yeah, there's even a part of me, having gone through lots of different painful places in life, and then now looking back and going, oh my gosh, that was the biggest pivot point into what I now love so much. If that hadn't happened, I would not be here. If I hadn't gone through what I've gone through, there's no way I could sit with my clients in their pain the way that I can now. It's so many things that were so hard. I'm so deeply grateful for now.
Right.
To the
Yeah.
point that it's like whatever we go through, like, okay, how is this going to serve?
Yeah. Right. What am
Other
I going to
than,
learn? I'm going to grow. I know I'll grow, and
yeah,
just
what
having
a
faith.
treasure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just said that
Having
to a
faith.
friend this week who's going through a lot. I'm like, part of me wants to be like, I'm so sorry you're going through it. And part of me is so excited for you. So excited, like genuinely so excited for you. Like, what is this about to turn into in your life?
Because you never know. The what if.
Yeah,
You never know. What
absolutely.
if something else happens that's even better than you could ever imagine?
Yes. It all positions you for more. That,
It
like,
does.
we're
Oh,
never
yeah.
the victim, really. I mean, not that you can't just like let yourself grieve the losses in life. That's important,
Sure.
but they all serve us,
Yeah.
really.
All right. So before we run out of time, because I've taken up so much of your time, I have two questions for you before we go. One, I love to hear what people's personal wellness journeys are like and what their personal wellness activities in their days are like. So you mentioned journaling. What other things have you incorporated into your life to help you with your personal inner wellness?
Oh man. So every morning I have time that nobody can kind of infringe on. It's just like my space before I have any clients or anything going on that is, journaling. I have a bunch of different kind of health and wellness things that I take or drink or whatever.
Yep.
Some either yoga, stretching, exercise, some kind of movement piece. So morning routine, I would say I have things that are kind of annual, like every year I do the, vision board, vision clarity
Yeah.
retreat, uh,
Yeah.
family vacation. I do multiple things with friends, like annual things that are just kind of like these are the big rocks based
Yeah.
on my priorities are, and everything else gets scheduled around it. So, yeah, I would say time away. I try and get between 10 and 20,000 steps a day. So lots of walking, just movement. I do some
Movement's good.
kind of like every 6 months, I do some kind of either detox or fast or cleanse, something like that. So, kind of looking at the physical, the
Hmm.
emotion, always in some kind of inner process, like some
Yeah.
kind of course or like right now, I'm doing, and this is a book that I absolutely love that I would totally recommend,
Okay.
is
Good.
The Artist Way. Have you ever done that or heard that?
Oh, I have not done that, but I've heard of it.
It's
Yeah.
good. It's been one of those books that's been really transformational in my life. So this is probably my seventh time going through it. Over
Ooh.
But yeah, I had a friend that was like, "Hey, you want to do the Artist Way with me?" I was like, "I've done it a lot of times, and yes, I will totally do that again with you." So that incorporates a lot of different things. One of them is journal 3 pages every morning.
Yeah.
Morning pages where you just stream of conscious, don't stop writing, and just see what comes out. She's like, "It doesn't matter if it's your grocery list. It doesn't matter if you're writing, I don't know what to write. I don't, just don't stop writing until you get done with 3 pages." And it is amazing what just shows up and comes
It
out.
is.
Gratitude or frustration or like
Yep.
things are just, it clears out all the mental clutter that's in your head all the time. And you get that out first thing in the morning, and then you're just so much more freed up to kind of focus on your day. Another component of it is doing an artist date every week. So you take yourself by yourself out to do something that just sounds delightful to you. It could be like this last week, I went to a farmer's market by myself and just walked around and took pictures of beautiful things and bought some veggies and fruit that I
I like it.
wildflowers and pet puppy dogs. And it was great. It was just like following kind of your delight. What is it
Yeah.
that brings you delight, and making space and time for it every
Yeah.
week by yourself.
Making yourself a
Yes,
priority.
and yeah, going with yourself, like
Yeah.
go with that part of you that just
Yeah.
needs to be seen, needs to be loved, needs to be nurtured. And it's just this kind of, I am going to take care of you kind of feeling every week. Beautiful. And then after each chapter, there's a list of, I don't know, maybe a dozen different, she calls them tasks, all different kinds of things that go with that chapter. And you just pick a few of them to do that week. But it might be like, go through your closet and pick out 3 low self-worth things that you don't need in your closet anymore and donate them. Like, just clear it out. Or write a letter to some critic in your past who was critical of you, and tell them like how you really feel, and right from that age, like whatever, like your 7-year-old self, I can too spell, and whatever, kind of like in your defense. There's like all kinds of different tasks. Some of them are physical, some of them are more like reflective, but powerful. So you just pick a couple
Yes.
of those to do every week, and it's beautiful. Anyway, I'm doing it with a friend right now, and that's been a joy.
That sounds great. Well, that was my second question, was a book that you would recommend to everyone. So it sounds like that is a good book.
Yes, it's a great
Is
one.
there anything else that you would recommend to everyone that I
Gosh.
haven't asked about?
I've been influenced by Catherine Woodward Thomas, and she has like, I've been through some of her stuff in this last year. She's launching a community called True You, which I would recommend. It's great. But she really has you tuning into yourself. Like when you're going through something, she'll just be like, just sit and be like, "Sweetheart, what is it that you're feeling right now?" And I'm like, it's just so self-compassionate. And I have
Yes.
not ever been quite that like, I don't know, interacting with that younger child self as much as I have influenced by her, and just kind of noticing like, what is it that I feel, getting really clear. And then what is it that you need right now? And maybe it's just, I need to go outside and take my shoes off and walk in the grass. Or maybe it's, I need a 10-minute power nap, or I need to put on a song and dance and reset, or I need to call.
Right.
So, it's just whatever it is you need. But
Yeah.
tuning into what it is that you feel from this place of self compassion, what is it that I need? That's been really beautiful. I've just been doing that more often, like a lot in my morning pages. What do you feel? What do you need? And like
Yeah.
putting,
What do you need? That's an really interesting question.
yeah.
What is it that you need? And evaluating need versus want in a different way, also by looking at it that way and looking inward.
And I
I
think doing
like that a
that
lot.
for ourselves, we are constantly always motivated by what we feel and what we need. And we're subconsciously always trying to get our needs met. And so
Right.
that ends us up in some places that really are pretty unhelpful, because we're not conscious of what's actually driving it, whether
Yeah.
it's like our workaholism, because we think we need to make all this money so that we can feel approval, or maybe it's so that we can feel a sense of security, or so that, like, there are different underlying needs underneath even some of the same behaviors for different people. But if we can tune in and we can go, okay, what I really need is a sense of security or a sense of significance, or I need to feel approval. And like we actually can give ourselves so many of those things that we spend sometimes a lifetime running
Yeah.
after at
Right.
the conscious level. But when you
Right.
can make it conscious and make it so that you're aware of what you need, then you can go, okay, if that's what I'm needing, then how can I help get that for myself? And then we're not putting so much pressure on all of our relationships. We're not
Yeah.
running after things. We're not numbing out as much through addictions because we're actually meeting the needs that are really there. It's I think, really beautiful. So I would say that like, giving yourself space every once in a while to really kindly, compassionately tune in and notice what you feel, notice what you need, and then make it a priority in your life. Really beautiful.
Perfectly said. What a beautiful way to end this recording. I thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and your amazing energy. I will put in the show notes all the places and ways that people can find you and follow you and find out about your coursework, follow you on Instagram. And thank you so much. You are a beautiful soul and you have so much wisdom. And I thank you for sharing everything with my audience. So thank
Good
you.
to be with all of you today. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Have a great day. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Bye. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the House of JerMar podcast, where wellness starts within. We appreciate you being a part of our community and hope you felt inspired and motivated by our guest. If you enjoyed this episode, please write us a review and share it with friends. Building our reach on YouTube and Apple Podcasts will help us get closer to our mission to empower 1 million women to live all in. You can also follow us on Instagram at House of JerMar and sign up to be a part of our monthly inspiration newsletter through our website, houseofjermar.com. If you or someone you know would be a good guest on the show, please reach out to us at podcast@houseofjermar.com. This has been a House of JerMar production with your host, Jean Collins. Thank you for joining our house.